All right, our agenda continues today. My name is Rickard Anderkrans. I'm a healthcare equity research analyst here at ABG, also the lead analyst for Biovica, which is our next company presenting here on this track. And I'm very happy to introduce the CEO of the company, Anders Rylander. So without further ado, Anders, welcome to this presentation and looking forward to hearing you speak today.
Yes, thank you very much, Rickard, and hello, everyone. My name is Anders Rylander. I'm the CEO of Biovica, as Rickard said. And just a few words about my background. I have a background as a consultant, many years within Accenture, and as an entrepreneur, co-founding management consultant firm Axholmen. And came into contact, met with Biovica more than 10 years ago and was very attracted about the large potential in the company, both for cancer patients being on treatment and the possibility of providing a better outcome of that treatment, but also for healthcare provider and the commercial potential in the company. So now 10 years later, I'm both the major shareholder and also the CEO of the company. And I think we have a very exciting time ahead of us, which I'll talk about. So if we move on to the third slide, the agenda slide, this is what I will cover. The unmet need in our solution, our collaborations and the results of those, the go-to-market plan, the next step after the first indication, and then a summary and some upcoming milestones to look out for. So if you move to the next one, the current situation in metastatic breast cancer, and this is valid for most metastatic cancer areas, I would say, but we've chosen to focus initially on metastatic breast cancer. And the good news is that there has now been developed a lot of treatments, which provides for a lot of treatment options for the treating physician, which is, of course, has been great for the patient. You see that cancer patients are doing better on their treatment. But on the other hand, it also creates new challenges, and that is that all patients does not respond to all treatments. So you need to find out to match that, and also over time, resistance is developed, and you need to discover that early on so you can switch to an alternative treatment so that the patient can get the best possible treatment and an effective treatment. Other challenges are also side effects. So you want to make sure that the treatment is effective, worth taking the side effects. And also the cost impact. Standard treatments within metastatic breast cancer are priced at more than $10,000 per patient a month. So it's also, from a health economic perspective, important that you use the resources effectively. Today, the treatments are monitored by using imaging. And here's an area where we believe strongly that we can provide a more efficient solution to the benefits of the patients and the healthcare providers and the payers. So if you move on to the next one, slide number 5, I'll talk about our product and how it works, very high level. The product is called Divitum. It stands for dividing tumor. And that's actually what we measure. We measure cell proliferation. And as you know, cancer is defined by uncontrolled cell proliferation, so we provide essential information. And the way we do that is through a blood sample from the patient, which is combined with our product, our assay, as we call, which is packaged as a kit on a standard platform, so it's easy to implement in the different labs around the world. And you get a readout from that, which correlates to the cell proliferation level or the aggressiveness of the cancer, as it has been shown in several clinical trials. It also, if the treatment, which most treatments are, has the objective to inhibit cell proliferation, you should be able to see that there's a reduction in cell proliferation, which we've also proven in several clinical trials that it's a good way of getting feedback on treatment efficiency. And compared to imaging, which is the standard method being used today, we measure cell proliferation, the growth rate, which eventually will become an increase in tumor volume. And with imaging, you compare size of the tumor at start of treatment and at certain time points during treatment. And you need to give some time for the volume to build and to be able to evaluate. And that is usually done after 3-4 months into treatment. And we've shown in clinical trials that already after 2 weeks, we can see significant reductions for patients being on treatment. And talking about other ways of doing and potential competitors, that's slide number 6. Imaging I just mentioned, and that's important because that's a standard method that we don't want to replace. We want to complement, and especially within the monitoring area, and imaging is being used in many other areas and providing important information. Another area which we also want to complement is biopsies. And biopsies are being used, especially in earlier phases, and also not for monitoring where you have serial samples to be taken. And there are biopsy tests for proliferation, just like we're measuring, which is good because the treating physician is familiar with the concept. But we have a great advantage here with a liquid, a blood-based test. So we don't see that as a competitor as well, more that we can add something new. When it comes to blood-based markers, there are some that we are more direct competitor, and but that currently within monitoring of metastatic breast cancer, there are no standard, well-established blood-based biomarkers. The closest to that is CA15-3, which is approved in guidelines and so on, but it's not being widely used and have some shortcomings when it comes to its precision, and also that all patients does not express this antigen that is being measured. So here we think we have an opportunity to add something that is superior. There are also new, very exciting and interesting new technologies coming out, like the CTCs, circulating tumor cells, and ctDNA, where you do genomic analysis based on blood samples. And that's really exciting and will provide a lot of information. But they have also been focused in other areas than monitoring of cancer for good reasons, because they require a lot of blood draw and it's a bit more expensive to implement than Divitum. So we believe we have a great opportunity competition-wise as well within the field of monitoring of metastatic cancer in general and metastatic breast cancer specifically. Moving on to the next one, the clinical results, because this is essential. We need to prove our capability with data, and we need to do that in clinical trials together with some of the leading both academic institutions and key opinion leader oncologists in the world. And so far, we've been able to do that successfully with over 24 published clinical trials in peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed means that other experts in the field has been able to give input and question the results before publication in the scientific journal. And the majority of the results is in the breast cancer area, which is our initial focus area. But we also have proof of concept within other important areas like the gastrointestinal and lung cancer area, which are cancer areas with a lot of patients. And just recently, we presented data on metastatic malignant melanoma, which is also an important area where immunotherapies are being used, which is interesting for us to be able to complement those as well. And if you summarize the results from these clinical trials, we're shown to be prognostic if you take the samples before start of treatment, and in the local setting, prognostic for recurrence, and in a metastatic setting, prognostic for progression and for overall survival. And when we've been able to monitor taking serial samples, we've shown that we can give quick feedback on treatment efficiency. It's also important who that we've done these collaborations with, and it all started with Karolinska a few years ago. So now we're doing our third collaboration together with them, a prospective trial. And it has been widened into other European collaborators like the ABGSC and Big Against Breast Cancer, where we've just presented results from our first prospective trial, where we've been able to follow the patients for a couple of years. And in the US, we have several collaborations with the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, the Dana-Farber, etc. And if you look at the breast cancer area specifically, this is how it looks. The next slide. We have data from local to the metastatic area, but we have focused on the metastatic area, and the next step that we would like to expand to is the locally advanced, the stage 3. And as you can see, the blue ones are the already published, peer-reviewed and published. The pink ones, we presented the results on a conference, and you can expect the results to be published soon. And the white ones are ongoing trials where we have, which is in progress, basically. So this will give a great foundation for our commercialization activities going forward, especially with the breast cancer area. Talking about commercialization activities, if you move to the next slide. The next slide is our key opinion leaders. That's the oncologists that are the ones that actually are performing these clinical trials. And this is a slide where we have oncologists that has been or are doing work with our assay or has been advisor to us in the past. So those are, of course, really important. And we see the oncologist is there where we want to create demand, and we want them to communicate also these key opinion leaders the results and to reach to, because oncologists listen to other oncologists, especially the ones with a lot of experience within the business. And if you go to the next one, we have an example of one of them, Luca Malorni. Here I want to do some PR for our upcoming Capital Market Day. Luca has a lot of experience, more than 4 completed clinical trials and a couple of really interesting one ongoing. So he has a lot of experience from our assay, and he will share that experience, plus be able to talk about, answer questions on the 9th of June when we have our Capital Market Day. Yeah, so if we move on to the next one, we have commercialization activities. What are the key activities in order to bring this to the market for a successful commercialization in our mind? And here's a summary of the key activities. We've been working for a couple of years now, for many years, and we're coming to the end of this as we are about to launch the product. And of course, you have to have a product, and we've actually now developed our 3rd version of the product, which has been tailored to meet the requirements of the FDA. And that has been in validation since completed since quite some time. And with a product, you can do the clinical documentation, which I just talked about, the clinical trials proving the value of the product. And that's essential basically for all other commercialization activities. That's what you need for regulatory, for all the other activities listed on this picture. And when it comes to the regulatory pathway, as we want to get into the US market, in order to be allowed to market and sell the product for clinical use on the US market, you need to get regulatory approval from the FDA. And that process is called 510(k), which I'll come back to. But that's not enough. You have to also get into the reimbursement system so you can get paid for the product. And a good way of making that happen is the guideline inclusion. So we're working to generate data for that and health economics to prove the value of the product. And then also you need a commercial partner, someone that could offer the product as a service and also has a sales force so you can reach out to the customers and the oncologists. And when you put all this together, you're ready to launch the product, which we plan to do after this summer when we get the regulatory approval in US. So if we move on to the next one, I'll just say a few words on our FDA process because it's been a bit special due to the pandemic situation. But we did submit our application in September last year. And you see the process to the left here that the FDA uses a very strict process normally. And we quickly passed the first 2 milestones and went into substantive review when they start reviewing the details of the application. And about the same time, we also got the message, and not only we, everyone got the message that the FDA now pauses all applications for a 90-day period due to the pandemic situation and are focusing on reviewing COVID tests instead. And we got a new message after 90 days that this will be prolonged for another 90 days, except for prioritized submission or applications. And just a couple of days later, we got actually the positive feedback that the FDA will start reviewing our application, which is really, really positive to be in the few selected ones. So on the 29th of January, the review was restarted, and we have been in dialogue and provided more information to the FDA. But it's obvious that they don't stick to their normal time plan, as you see here on the left. So it's a slower process than normal, but still we have a good dialogue with the FDA and have been able to provide answers to all the questions so far. And we're waiting for feedback now. And but I think it's a realistic time plan, which we have communicated up until now, that Q3 this year is when we expect to get the final feedback and the clearance of the product. And that's also in line with how the FDA have been communicated. If you go to the next one, this is an example from their general communication, where they say that we'll continue to focus on COVID-19 applications. We have a few selected categories that we are prioritizing as well. But slowly they're going back to normal and starting to work on their backlog that has been created during this time. So yeah, it's never, we don't like delays, but we're grateful that our review were prioritized and started several months ago. Moving to the next one, reimbursement and health economics. We've been doing some work on that as well. We've been doing that for many years actually, but now based on the results that we now have, we're able to compile a health economic model, and we've done it as a budget impact model for the payers, as we want to initiate discussion with payers. And yeah, to simplify the message and the outcome is that every dollar spent on Divitum gives $3 back in savings. And it also confirms we have used a price assumption in the level that we've been communicated before, $400 per test, and that's also confirmed in that process. So we were very happy about this, and this has been presented on the 17th of May on a health economic conference, and we've been using this model to initiate discussions with payer in, for example, a payer advisory board and so on. So we're on track within that area as well. Moving on to the next one. Yeah, how are we gonna enter the US market? Well, we have a strength in our collaborations with many of the leading cancer centers, and those are also part of to a great extent, the NCI designated cancer center. There is 71 of them, that's our focus area, where our initial customers, the early adopters, which is a good way to enter the market and get a good market penetration. And we like to do that together with a lab partner. And initially we're looking more on us like a level 2, tier 2, not the big ones, LabCorp's Quest, but more specialty lab strong within oncology that has a sales force. And we're in discussion with some of those and progressing well as well. So that's also an important piece for our upcoming launch, as well as what I just talked about, the payers, and we've initiated that discussion. There are payers that are known as early adopters, and we have a lot of data, so we think we have a good opportunity to already now involve in discussions and get the first reimbursement already this year from those, and then build from there. And yeah, on the slide you see some of the ones that we have in mind and have or will initiate discussions with. Okay, moving on to the next one, a few words about the rollout plan and the market potential. as I've said a couple of times, the US market is where we want to introduce our test, and that's why we do all the activities there. So we've set up a team in the US doing a lot of the activities, you see a market potential figure there as well, which is based on the number of patients living with the disease times the price levels, which we have based on market research and now confirmed, as I said, in payer discussions, plus the process of using the product, which has been also, we received feedback from oncologists and payers. So that boils down to the market potential estimates. And then the second market we want to enter is the European and the Nordics, because it's very similar in terms of treatment and treatments and process guidelines and so on. We will be more selective because the countries vary a bit more than US has one reimbursement system, but our objective is to enter one of those markets before end of this year. And when we enter a market, our ambition is that we should be able to get 15% of the market potential within the first 3 years, and that long term will reach 50% of the market potential. And the product also has, as products in general in this area, has very high gross margins. But of course, we will have a partnership set up where we will share revenues. Okay, moving on to the next one. Next step after initial launch of breast cancer. Yeah, there's potential to expand. The first step is probably locally advanced breast cancer, but then geographically outside the markets, but most important maybe out into new cancer areas. And that's also why it's so important that we have proof of concept within many important areas like malignant melanoma, lung cancer, gastrointestinal. But we also have sales to pharma, and collaborations with pharma opens up also opportunities to do collaboration products, which could lead to new products. So there's the metastatic breast cancer launch is the first step of many. And to summarize it, yeah, we have a very interesting product with a great potential that can meet an unmet need. We have several very strong collaborations with well-known academic institutions and key opinion leaders. And the result from those gives us a strong foundation for our commercialization activities that we're now doing. The potential is large, and that's for the initial application that we can widen over time. And we have an exciting 2021 where we expect to see feedback and regulatory clearance for 510K from the FDA. That is a starting point for our launch in the US. And we already started with our work, health economics, to get in the reimbursement system, which we expect to happen also during 21, and launch of the first country in Europe as well. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Anders. Just a quick Q&A here then. So just it'll be interesting to hear on how we should think about the potential positioning of the Divitum test. Do you believe it will be used standalone or in some type of treatment algorithm? And if so, what could be the potential combinations, in the final clinical setting?
Yeah, that's a good question, and see if I can answer it here somewhat structured. Short term, the 510K application and so on, the intended use is that will be used standalone, but it will be used in combination with other diagnostic information, like on the slide where I showed the other input. And that's how generally the treating physician is using a lot of information and interpreting that without an algorithm, just combining information. However, I think you are opening up an interesting question, and that's an area for us to develop, that we can actually add biomarkers for certain purposes, either if you want to target certain areas or if you want to do collaborations with pharma to add biomarkers that more correlates to the mechanism of action of their drug. But that's more of a research roadmap and looking further into the future. But that's something that we think is very interesting and are looking into, but nothing I could communicate in the details about.
Great, I appreciate that. And in the interest of time, we will unfortunately have to end the presentation here, as we have a busy agenda ahead of us. But I'm sure that Anders would be happy to take any investor questions that you might have, and can reach out to the company in that case. I want to thank you so much, Anders, for participating.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day and best of luck going forward.
Thank you, Richard.